before we hand it over to our fabulous panelists to introduce themselves, I just wanted to say once again, thank you all for coming here. And in addition to the community agreements that are sort of our outward facing community agreements or guidelines really for this salon, we just wanted to say that this salon specifically is to gather and present resources for emerging designers, current students, recent grads, anyone who is on the path of entering into the world of live performance and theatrical design. So we really do encourage those voices first in this space. And we will have some time for like smaller group conversation a little bit later. And just to say that Wingspace is a really fabulous community network, and every one of the panelists here is connected to Wingspace in some direction or other, whether they were producing shows with Wingspace designers or have hosted Wingspace in their space itself. There are beautiful connections that are here. So I am going to pass it over to, let's start with Dstew to do some introductions.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks, Wingspace, for hosting us. My name is David Stewart, known as Dstew throughout the industry. My pronouns are he and him. I am calling from the land of the Seminole people, also known as Orlando, Florida, home of the Walt Disney World, where I am currently a production manager and soon to be the producer of inclusive strategies and content for Disney Live Entertainment Global. And I am also the co-owner of Production on Deck. And I am going to hand it over to my new friend with the fabulous background color, Meghan.
Thank you. My name is Meghan Finn. I use she, her pronouns. I'm calling in from the land of the Canarsie Lenape people, also known as Brooklyn, New York. I am the artistic director of The Tank, which is a nonprofit home for emerging artists in Manhattan. So I'm really excited to be here. Gonna pass it to my old friend, Natalie, with an equally fabulous background, Natalie Robin.
Thanks, Meghan. Hi, Natalie Robin, she, her. I'm zooming in from the land of Lenape people, known colonially as Philadelphia. I'm a lighting designer, educator, and union organizer worker. And I'm here as a member of United Scenic Artists, Local USA 829, which represents designers in live entertainment, as well as in TV and film. And I'm going to pass it to Anna.
And I'm going to jump in and say, hi, I'm back again. And I'm going to help moderate discussion for this evening. I'm going to mention that we actually have two other organizations that are being represented in this salon. We have Design Action. Twee, who's going to be representing all of that, had some technical difficulties, so maybe joining in with us. And we'll give them all the attention to be able to kind of use this platform to share those resources and their activism. And also we have Artcube, which is a globally based organization, and Eva, who is super passionate about all of this and shared resources and shared assistance and like job postings and everything, also wasn't able to join us this evening. So before we get jumping into like talking about like what exactly are we all working on and what exactly are the actions being taken and the groups actually, what are they doing and what are they? We're going to jump quickly into a little video that Eva gave us all about Artcube.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Eva Radke, founder and CEO of Artcube Nation and recovering 829 art department coordinator. ArtcubeNation.com is a community for art department, fabrication, and design professionals in film, television, theater, and events. In 2007, I founded it with 30 other set decorators, and we were just swapping couches. But since then, it's evolved into a global platform with over 125 cities around the world. I've heard story after story about how Artcube has changed the professional pathways available to those that may not have a friend in the film industry. And I recently got this note from Iman Akram Nader, who's been a member for just 1 year. Here it goes. I'm so grateful to Artcube. It's been a fantastic way to network, buy and resell props, set dressing, and find work. I love this platform and the amazing art community it's cultivated. Can't recommend you guys enough to friends and colleagues. I think Iman said it the absolute best. So let me give you the tips that you're here for about getting into this sort of work. First of all, if you're a recent grad, please use a not your school email. You will be judged. Also, when you're looking for a community, join those communities, but also contribute to it. Build a name for yourself. You can get a reputation. And if you're knowledgeable and you have some know-how, help someone out who's in a jam. Remember that if you were a production designer on a student film, there might be a chance that doesn't make you a production designer in the real world. You might just be an art PA, and it's pretty fun, so go ahead. January and February in New York in particular are very slow, so save your money. Buy and maintain your URL to show your work and that you can zip off to others, and maintain it, stay on top of it. And also, perhaps on Artcube, you could create some work and collaborate with others who can share that labor and expense. And here's the greatest thing, Artcube might be able to make that more affordable for you too, because it's more than a job board. Cubers loathe to throw perfectly good set dressing away just because camera is wrapped. Your production can save money on purchases, and the giving production saves on disposal fees, and the cycle continues. So you too, when you're all done with your project, you can offer those leftovers. You can ask for tricks of the trade, find hard to find props, and even get something fabricated and get a quote from one of our fabricators. And also, your personal ethics can apply. There's a lot of activism on Artcube Nation. You know, we share that philosophy with Wingspace. Our makers made 15,000 PPE in 2020 from March to May. And when the supply chain caught up, we could rest. Scenic artists painted community fridges. And people all the time are asked for collections or leftovers for schools and nonprofits. And there's plenty to give. I think the thing that really sets us apart is that we care. You know, we get involved. They're very, very rare disputes. But if there are, we get involved and we have 100% satisfaction rate on that. You don't mess with the cube. So anywho, I hope that gives you a little idea of what we're all about. Visit artcubnation.com, click join, check us out. And I thank you and have a lovely evening. And thank you to Wingspace for inviting me.
Can I just say as a testament that like literally within the last, I'm an active cuber. I'm an active cuber myself. And because I gravitate between live performance as well as a lot of film and production. And within like the last 2 weeks alone, I have posted a number of questions that I have about treatments, scenic treatments, techniques, resources. I actually was able to put a job posting, which is like my favorite thing to do in the world, of being like, hey, I can't do this. Here's a job, someone do it. And like, we were able to find the perfect person who I didn't know ahead of time. And like, I had a real bind once in LA, and thanks to Artcube, I had no idea how to do what I didn't have any context or anything in LA. All of the team members were like, talk to this shop, talk to this shop, talk to this shop. And it was like, it was amazing. It's just been, and Eva's great. So that's, I'll be a real world like supporter of that group. And also I was super impressed with everything they did with the PPE, the whole PPE, like the gathering of it was, and they gathered together with all the workshops and all the spare materials and everything. That was amazing. Anyways, I'm just gonna say, in the same way that Eva has described kind of what the resources and everything about what Artcube is, I would love to hear from the rest of our panelists about like, what are their groups and what are their organizations and what are they doing now? So just kind of going in the similar path that we had before. Dstew, if you want to start off.
You think I would know what the mute button is 2.5 years later doing this. Yeah, so production on deck. Actually, my partner in crime, Sarah Lozoff, is here in the room. So I'm really thankful for her support in the space. Basically, what happened was many years ago, there was, I kind of made a call to action from the nation's production managers. I'm like, hey, why are there no production people of color backstage? Why are these world builders not being adhered to? Why do we keep seeing the same names over and over again? And that kind of caught a little bit of traction. And then I started speaking nationally about it. And I would get artistic directors that are like, hey, we're looking for a technical director. We're looking for a production manager. I'm like, you all need to do this work. I ended up at the Guthrie, and Joe Hodge there was saying that there would be no more homogenous design teams. With that, I'm like, bet, great, I'm on that page, let's do this. And I went back to my office and I'm like, I know so few people of color that design. So I reached out to the nation's production managers and I said, hey, I'm looking for production managers, looking for designers of color that you've worked with, and I built a list. Meghan, Zachy, and Sandberg had already built a list, so there was starting to be this pop-up of several various databases that came on. But the thing with those databases, which is a great thing, is that most people used them on Google, so they were a free resource for many folks. But I don't know anyone here that can remember a Google string, a ULR, to get to those places. So back during the pandemic, I built the website Production on Deck, to be able to house those resources. And there's over 34 databases on the website now. And that was not good enough, apparently. So we got a call from Seattle Children's that said, hey, can you come out and do a production audit for us? And so I said, Sarah, I need another set of eyes with me. So we traipsed out to Seattle and looked over their production department, gave them a report back. They were very thankful for that. That word got to Woolly Mammoth. They engaged us in much the same work. Then Hannah Sharif had moved from Baltimore Center Stage over to the Repertory Theater of St. Louis. And it was there where Larry Bennett was the director of production when Hannah first got there, and he moved on to the Alliance. And so she called me up and she's like, I just lost my director of production. What am I going to do? So we talked it through, and what she ended up saying was, guess what? You and Sarah need to start a company, and you're going to do the search for us. So on May 21st, 2021, which was just a few days ago, it was yesterday, as a matter of fact, was our first anniversary where we launched our first search. And we put that out into the space. And basically what Production on Deck does is that we go out and we amplify organization searches. So oftentimes we hear about search firms looking for artistic directors or executive directors, but we don't see a lot of search firms looking for production people. And by not a lot, I mean none. So we are that search firm that helps match talent with organizations. And our inbox has not stopped since, but we do have a focus on trying to find Black and brown bodies for those positions. And one of the things that, a little sidebar here, and I will step away from this, is that we've also discovered a very hard and startling fact. We did a survey back when we started this because I'm like, everyone's turning their lights on. Why aren't people coming back? And so I hired the incomparable Portia McGovern to do a survey for us. And what we found out is that up to 30% of production practitioners have left the field and are not coming back. And what we're seeing is that everybody was looking for a technical director in the before times, and in the now times, everyone is looking for production managers because that top end of production managers are leaving the business. They upheld their organizations during COVID, and now they've come to the other side of it, and they are exhausted and they are leaving. So we have a lot of work to do as a community to try to rebuild our pipelines, to rebuild and replenish our workforce. And we have to do it in a better way. We have to steal the president's campaign. We have to build back better. We have to do it in a more compassionate way of doing business.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Gonna jump on to Meghan next.
Hi, wow, yeah, that is fantastic. That was very wonderful work that you've been doing and very exciting. So yes, my name is Meghan Finn. I'm the artistic director of The Tank. We are a nonprofit arts presenter and producer dedicated to removing the economic barriers from the creation of new work by emerging artists in New York City. We're located on 36th Street between 8th and 9th Avenues, just, you know, a few blocks south of the heart of theater in New York. And what we try to do is provide free space and resources to around 2,500 artists every year. our model is really built for emerging artists coming to New York, particularly performing artists that are, would be trying to find a foothold for their work. The Tank was founded 18 years ago, and has been doing this in various spaces. We've been in our current home for the last 5 years. And we're really, what we try to do is share through a shared resource model, create a place where people can afford to do their work. If you're trying to get your first show up, for instance, if you're a small independent company, primarily the bulk of the resources that you may bring typically would go to renting a space. And most companies would need to spend thousands of dollars renting space for relatively short amount of time, and then before they've ever paid themselves, their collaborators, certainly their designers. And so what we do is try to remove those hard costs. So provide the space, first the space for free, but also we give them free access to our lighting and sound packages. We do front of house for them. We do some marketing for them. We really try to go down the line of things that you need to get your first show up off the ground, and give them to you for free, so that you can, any money you do raise, and you get a cut of the house, and you get a guaranteed stipend, so you leave with money in your pocket. So the hope is that any resources that small independent companies and individual artists are able to raise will go towards production costs, to paying people rather than paying rent to a landlord. We also, that's our presenting model, which is a vital part of what we do. I would say most other theaters of our size are subsisting on rentals when they're dark. So they'll have a certain amount of rental revenue that's coming in, and that provides and that's kind of I don't know, not everybody's probably familiar, but because rent is so high, it creates a situation where small to mid-sized companies, they need to generate revenue, so they're renting their space, and that those shows are kind of not the most not the ones they focus on. And then they have their season in that space. They may even call the theater a completely different name when you rent it from when they're doing a show there. For us, our presenting program is just as critical and vital. It is the heart of our work. So when we present work at the Tank, it's really we value it, and it's as important as anything else we do. But we do also co-produce a season of new work in theater, music, dance, storytelling, film, comedy, and everything in between. Excuse me. And those shows are, the idea and the impetus behind those are to get, excuse me, I have my delicious LaCroix here. It's a curated, it's the curate. This is what all artistic directors drink. They drink curated LaCroix. But we do, the idea behind that is some shows need, when artists are ready, so they come, they do their show at the Tank, they're presented, they're figuring out who they are, what they're making, what they want to say. Some of those shows need more support and want to have longer runs, want to have more complete designs. And so what we do is seed money into all of those projects on top of all the free resources that we give. And then try to get those shows in front of critics. We try to give people a place where you can get plays out of drawers and get them on stage. And so we've had incredible success over the years with those, because there's a lot of artists when you have major theaters doing 5 plays a year. and everybody's trying to get one of those spots to get a story told. How diverse can the voices be when there are only 5 slots, per theater? So it's like, we're really trying to make a space where we can get more shows done, so that artists can have their work seen and actually made, and not just have shows die in workshop before you all even get to touch them. So that's what we do.
I have to say that in New York City, I think just about everybody I know has been involved with a project at the Tank and are regularly returning and producing work at the Tank. So it's like very much the lifeblood and kind of vein for a lot of new work in the city, which is incredible. And I think we all just wish that more places around the world and around the country had that, especially if you're coming from an educational institution where you have so many resources and you don't realize what you do actually have to, like what things cost outside of that. But yeah, and also now moving over to Natalie.
Hi. Yeah, Megan, you've made me feel old because I did some shows at the Tank in those early years, for sure. And I'm so thankful for them. So I'm here as a member of United Scenic Artists Local USA 829, which is an IATSE local, which represents designers in live performance, as well as scenic artists and film designers on the East Coast and scenic artists in St. Louis and some other places. With Buffalo, we've been doing some organizing in Buffalo and also at the Guthrie. United Scenic Artists is a 125+ year old labor union. So forgive me in advance, but my labor union soapbox is pretty strong and I like to stand on it. There's a lot of things which are facing artists working in any field in this moment. And one of the things that makes us stronger is working together in collective action, which is what unions are designed to do, right? Union means a collection. It's not just about labor, but it is sometimes about labor. And so in the case of USA, we not only bargain for our members so that we have contracts which reflect a fair living wage and health benefits and protections in both mental and physical safety. We also provide training to our members. I'll drop a link in the chat after I'm done talking because I can't do both at once, but there are innumerable free classes offered to members in everything from software to labor organizing to Nicole Brewer's anti-racist creative practices to strategies for folks who stand at work a lot and have to take care of their bodies in order to do that. We support endeavors by the members to create points of contact between members of the local and our collaborators outside the field, directors, producers, production managers. We, of course, maybe not of course, but we provide health insurance and pension to those members who contribute to those funds. But we do have members who, oh no, Dstew, where'd you go? Oh, maybe you just turned your camera. We do, sorry, I got distracted. We do provide innumerable non-financial benefits to our members. Like I said, there are classes, there's also legal support, there's access to things like the Actors Fund, which now has a new name, the Entertainment Community Fund. And during the pandemic, we as a local contributed a lot of money to the Actors Fund in order to help all of our comrades who are out of work. In terms of specifically for early career designers, I think there's a lot of old and out of date information about how you shouldn't join until you're ready, or you shouldn't join until you're far enough along. And I just have to tell you, friends, that like we are strongest when we are at our highest numbers, and we are not done doing our work until every woman sewing costumes in the basement of a church and every kid painting scenery at his community theater is a member of the labor movement. And so to that end, don't wait. Our current governance has voted to reduce the cost of joining by $1,000 as of August. And so joining via our exam process, which is one of the ways to join the union, costs about $500, which is, just for the record, you'll make it back in your health insurance very quickly. And our health insurance, for folks that don't know, or well, anyway, we are part of the IATSE National Benefits Fund, and that insurance, one of the amazing things about that insurance is that there is a individual cost and a family cost. And it doesn't matter if your family is 2 people or your family is 16 people, that family cost is the same. So for artists with families, there's like a really huge financial benefit to union insurance. It truly doesn't matter if you have 1 kid or 6 kids. And our pension fund is in unbelievably healthy financial shape, and that it's a defined benefit fund, which means that when you retire from work, you are guaranteed a set amount of money for every month that you are alive, no matter how long that is. We also, just in the financial realm, we have a death benefits fund, which means that when a member passes away, every member gives $1.50 to their beneficiary, which there's almost 6,000 of us. And for anyone who has recently paid for a funeral, I can tell you that that money is really helpful. So sorry to be a little dark, but these are ways in which unions take care of not only our siblings, but also our siblings' families. There's a reason that the labor movement uses family language, and it's not because of a false sense of ownership, but it is in fact because we are all in this fight together. I will get off my soapbox now, but happy to talk more about why unions are important.
Is genuinely fantastic soapbox to be on. So I think to really, we can all talk about labor unions in various capacities and the complexities, but to exhibit the sheer passion behind that, and also the realities of like those hardcore living realities of like, these are the things we need to not only to live, but to create. Someone once said to me, actually, you want to look in terms of like a pension because you're actually investing. They phrase so beautifully, like you're investing in your future artistic self. Because that means when you're older, you continue to have creative and artistic freedoms because you invested in it over a long period of time. Instead of kind of finding yourself at the end, like later in life, when you're actually at your prime creatively, because you have all this experience and yet you don't have the financial, like the benefits to support it. So I have a question for all of you. I think obviously these are all just magnificent organizations and magnificent movements, and I wish a million of them existed. For every facet. But I think I'm wondering also, because I think even in the case of 829, when many of us would think like, oh, of course we all know about it. Therefore they're like thinking on it, but actually I'm just speaking for myself, as I came from European education. And when I arrived in the city, had no idea about all these things. No one told me any of these things. No one knew me about these resources available. I didn't have an institution with a class all about how you get into 829. So I'm wondering how all of you, how these organizations are really reaching out to show like basically, even like Natalie, what you said, what is available.
I mean, I can go first. I will say that I think, I'm going to say this in a recording. I think that United Scenic Artists is in a moment of reckoning around organizing. I think that historically, we have worked functionally like a historical craft union, which means that we waited for people to want to do the thing. And then when they wanted to do the thing, they came and joined us, which is why our structure revolves around exams. But I think there's a new motivation to look outward and to really consider what the gatekeeping practices of the local have been in terms of providing access. Dstew mentioned Portia McGovern is one of the founding members of our diversity committee. And a lot of work has been done by that committee around census taking around the membership to really think about like, who are we and who do we want to be? And I, can't speak for all 6,000 members, but I think it is, well, our membership is getting older and we need to be thinking about what the next moment in the labor movement is. And I think we know, if anyone has opened a newspaper recently, you know that the baristas organizing their Starbucks are not 50. And I think that's important. And so as we look to the future, we do a lot of, we are present at a lot of events. We go to USITT, we go to LDI, we do try to do outreach to educational institutions. But I think that one of the things that I'm most excited about is actually something our computer artist category committee is doing, which is that they do, computer artists, for anyone who doesn't know, are the graphic designers of the film and TV world. And they do awesome things like design the screens on people's iPhones on the television show you're watching. It's really cool. But they do a lot of outreach to folks in adjacent fields, graphic design, like non-entertainment fields, graphic design, advertising, illustration, and they do all these trainings to teach people how to translate those skills as computer artists and then to join the union as members. So I think there's some really interesting work being done there. And like I said, I think reducing the cost of the exam process for membership is 100% an effort towards making union membership more accessible to people who are working. All working designers should be members of the local. And so we want to make that as accessible as possible.
Natalie, thank you for saying that. I'm so thrilled that the union's in a reflective moment. So thank you for that. Production on deck, we're nascent. We're just babies here. We're not even walking yet, and we're pulling on all the cords and seeing what works and what TV sets we can pull over onto ourselves. And there's also just two of us, so we don't do a lot of outreach. We haven't done spent a penny on marketing or any of that kind of stuff, and we've just stayed busy. We've gotten a little bit of a reputation with our artistic directors, a good one, I am hoping. And we stay in good conversations with them. And it's not just about trying to match them with the right person, but it's also about challenging their notions of what hiring looks like, what their job descriptions look like, what their postings look like, what their salaries look like. So we do a lot of pushback on artistic directors, and they've welcomed that. So there's a lot of under the hood things that the public doesn't see. In terms of outreach, I think these spaces, and again, thanks to Kate for inviting us here, are really important to get out the word, to talk about how do you apply for a job and what to look for, and the things that there are people advocating for you in your corner. And I think that's also a very, very important part of what it is that we do, is talking in these public forums. So again, thank you for that.
Something that I did not mention previously, which is also one of the most exciting things about the tank, is that we operate with open submissions. So everything that comes to the tank comes to us initially through a very simple, basically email. You go to our website, thetanknyc.org, and you can submit your project to us. So it's everything in the presenting is lightly curated. Everything is reviewed. And then of course, things that move on to co-productions have gone through some amount. It's the show is ready, or the artists are ready, because there's been some amount of collaboration previously between the tank. But it's really, that's one of the most exciting things about the tank, is that they're, in terms of gatekeeping, it's, at every show, the front of house manager says, are you interested in doing a show here? You may submit your project. That said, with some of the work that we've been doing, and my co-curator, Johnny G. Lloyd, who's the director of artistic development, our focus has been on questioning, like, well, when you do have open submissions, who opts themselves out of that? So even though it may exist and it might be something that people can take advantage of, who isn't, and who doesn't know about it, or who isn't hearing about it? So part of what he's working on, and what we're working on in terms of our outreach, is trying to connect to existing companies that could utilize the resources that we have, that maybe just aren't, for whatever reason. There's some barrier to access that we just haven't assumed. So that's kind of like our focus right now, in terms of outreach, just thinking who can take advantage of this, who just doesn't know yet. And in terms of the practical, day-to-day stuff that goes along with being a designer that just landed in New York, for instance, and doesn't know a thing. The tank is a great place to get messy and to meet people. It is kind of a natural incubator in the truest sense. I'm happy to report that it is once again crawling with artists. It is in a true sense a community art space. Like, it is the use is, the space is maximized. You can find artists in every crevice of the space at any given time. And that kind of environment exists still in a place as expensive to live as New York. And it is a place where emerging artists can still meet one another and try things out and afford to fail. I think that is a critical piece of making work, affording to fail. If I had to raise, when I first moved to New York, I had a terrible job at an office, and I saved all my pension money, Natalie. I saved it and gave it and used it to rent theaters for $3,000 a week. So I, as a young director, could do my work, and then, from my desk job, and then of the little money I had left over from box office or whatever, I'd pay everybody something. Well, think about if now I get to say to young artists that come in, you don't have to spend that money. You take that money and you join the union and you put it in your pension, or you pay your collaborators, and it's transformative in that way, because it just helps people to be able to get a start.
I think that's such a great way even to say, like this whole entire thought of you don't know what you don't know. And until you kind of come across it, you realize, oh, I needed that. And it's so easy, like as soon as you come across an obstacle, being like, oh, I should have had that resource, or I should have had that thing. And I'm wondering for all of you, and even like thinking about our audience, everyone who's here tonight, and about kind of like starting off and needing things or like would be beneficial for them. What are some resources that you all have now, or you think the organizations offer, that you really wish you had or considered when you were just starting off?
I'll go. Accounting, and financial literacy. You come out of the gate and you're an assistant stage manager and you're making $300. It's a long time ago, $300 a week, and there's 2 weeks you're off, and then you have to go hustle during the summer to try to find that, and you're spending all your money moving here and fro. And no one talked to me about how to save or how to do taxes or how to do those things. And then I would say in my latter years, it's around cultural capacity. No one taught me how to build cultural capacity and how to open doors for others and how to do that work. And I'm a big fan of trying to develop some sort of gap initiative where we start training young leaders of tomorrow how to step into that space, because oftentimes, especially with Black and brown bodies, when they're applying for director of production, artistic director, managing director, they're like, you're missing this, that, and the other. And I want to, again, kind of our tagline, eliminate those excuses. I want to give them the ability to know what cash flow means. I want to give them about what does strategic planning means, what does capital assets mean, what do all those kind of things mean, how to, when I walked in, when I was at the Guthrie at the director of production and I had to walk into my first donor reception, they could smell the pour on me. So how do I function in those spaces? How do I cultivate boards and work with donors? All those kind of things. I really, really wish that someone would have pulled me aside early on and go, hey, there's life beyond stage management, might be production management, but here's a series of tools that will serve you wherever you go.
Can I plug the Entertainment Community Fund again? This is really like related to this financial literacy question. Did you know that someone will help you do your taxes for free? Like, I mean, I think that there's a lot of resources. I 100% agree with Dstew, like how to think about money, how to think about like how to support yourself, how to make your art when those things overlap and when they don't, and how to build both like emotional and literal safety nets in those ways, is just so crucial. You know, there's no, the business, it just keeps getting harder, right? Like New York keeps getting more expensive. As New York gets more expensive, other places get more expensive. And if you don't come from some amount of money, like how do you really do this? Not to be a downer, but it's really hard. And the reality is that like, here's my soapbox again, unorganized labor has no protections against being paid nothing. You know, when my first assistant lighting designer job ever was on a big fancy off-Broadway show that went to Broadway and didn't take me with it. And they made $600 for 10 weeks, friends. Not $600 a week, $600 for 10 weeks. And I had like saved every money I made working in an office before that so that I could do that job. And then I didn't have any money left at that. But now, last year, United Scenic Artists got assistant designers into our contract with a minimum wage requirement. So at the very least, everybody is making minimum wage in New York City. And most assistants are asking for $28 an hour. This is skilled work, like, right? We should be paid for our work. And the difference between even minimum wage and my $60 a week is life-changing, right? Like that means that like a human can afford to do the work. And yeah, that what Kate just said in the chat is true. So part of that off-Broadway agreement also includes a pathway to membership. So if non-members work on, I think 6 off-Broadway shows, they then can join, which is never a thing that existed before. And the member candidate program is all, like people can start contributing to their health insurance fund on the first show, which means at the end of the year, you've already put money into that. So that was a little, that was weaved my way through, but the finances are hard, and together we can make more progress than anybody individually can do themselves. You know, you might negotiate a great contract for yourself. It won't help you next time, and it won't help anybody after you. But if we do it together, it helps everyone.
It also normalizes the discussions around it. I think it normalizes discussions around pay transparency, fees. There's a lot of opaqueness and almost like kind of like cards close to the chest about all these talks about money, even though there shouldn't. And it just like, it takes it away from like myth and being something scary, just being something pragmatic.
Yeah, you know who benefits from us not talking about what we get paid?
Those are paying.
Yeah, the employers. It only ever helps the employers. And so we should all be talking about it. We should all be helping each other. We should all be, we should know where we sit in the room.
do want to say something because I think there are vitally important conversations that are happening, you know, and I think one thing that I actually saw Reggie Watts say in like a panel at like CUNY, so this was a long time ago, was like, his focus was like, he was like, you know, a performance artist. He started was one of the tank artists like early on, like doing, you know, music and comedy. And then now, you know, of course is on, you know, late night TV, but he was like, work every part of the stratosphere at once. Like, don't get like stuck looking for one thing. Like, don't get stuck being like, I need to be here right now. And so all these conversations are really vital, but I also would like to say it's still okay to do shows with your friends. And you should be. And when you're coming out of the gate, it's really tempting to look above you, especially when we've had so much pausing of work. And there's a lot of, maybe, I don't know if people are coming right out of a program, maybe you did come right out of a program and maybe you spent half the time that you were supposed to be making on a Zoom. And that can make you feel a little off balance coming out of the gate, like, oh, maybe I didn't get to do as many shows as I thought I was going to do, or whatever else, design, whatever else. So especially when we're inundated with what everyone else is doing all the time on social media, and like this feeling of inadequacy that can come along with that, don't always look above you for who is going to make the great work with you in your career. I would say you should look to the side and you look who's sitting next to you on either side of you and who you're in the trenches with right now. That's where those people that you're working with right now are going to be incredibly important for you as an artist in your own artistry and development. So when you find one of those beautiful relationships with collaborators, it might be a little show, and you know what, you know, maybe they're not getting the rate that they will get on off Broadway. Maybe you're also trying to get that gig, right? So you're getting that gig. Maybe you're doing, you're doing a couple of TV things, and then also you're doing this. But yeah, you know what? That person that I make that good work with, go ahead and do that show, because those are the people. You'll be surprised when I think about the people that were interns with me. They all have theaters now. They all have their own theaters, you know, and they were interns right next to me, you know. So, you know, just really value collaboration is what I wish that someone had said to me. And I do, and I'm happy, you know, with my it's the compost heap that I've created of work, but like, it's okay to do that too. You know, you need to be protecting yourself and growing and getting what you're worth. And also you can make fun stuff, with your friend.
I'm going to jump in real quick. Megan, you said something about being inundated, and that reminds me that also mental health is really, really important. Get a therapist. Get it when you are actually good, so that when you work with your person, they know your highs, they know your lows, and they can help you get back to center. So please take care of that gray matter. Production on Deck, Sarah built a great page of resources here. I just dropped it in the chat. All kinds of different, from sliding scales to therapy for Black women, therapy for Black men, all sorts of great things on there. So take a look at that.
Now, I have a question for you all as well. Is I know like there's tendency in these conversations to talk about a lot of like what's happening a lot in New York City. Obviously, like in the case of Meghan, the tank is based in New York City, and like, I'm going to say what I said before. I wish every city had a tank, could jump into it. And I'm just wondering if we can maybe give a moment, if you can think of any other organizations, any other resources and collectives that you know of in other cities that you really want to give a shout out, or have you been admiring what they're doing, or if anything, if you've seen them happening in other cities. I know the pandemic has definitely changed the location of where work is being done.
Well, yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, we can get really, especially, with, with, especially now, one thing that was really beautiful during the pandemic was that there were all these opportunities for organizations across the country, and also or larger and smaller organizations, to be in conversation with each other. And I think that was maybe the first time that's happened, at least in my understanding of the sector. And so, I think I would encourage, this might not be specific and it's not a specific shout out, but I just did a show in Phoenix and I was like deeply impressed with the artists I met there. And I think it really is a bloom where you're planted kind of industry. And we tend to overlook that. And so for what it's worth, there's a really wonderful conference in Omaha called the Great Plains Theater Conference, which I encourage all of you to look up. They have a program that brings in designers to collaborate with playwrights in early development of their plays. And it's not a place where you'd necessarily be like, okay, I'm going to go to Omaha. And some of you might be from Omaha, so you might be well aware of it, but it's really wonderful. So I just would like encourage people to check it out.
I mean, I can't talk enough about how great Philadelphia is. I mean, there are 80 professional theater companies in Philadelphia. And when I say professional, I mean like people producing their friends' work in their basements and paying everybody $100 to the 4 Lort theaters in town, and Walnut Street, which is a different thing. I think that every city has a theater, and every city that has a big theater has a bunch of smaller theaters. And to Megan's point, like there has to be a place where all the assistants are making work. And that's where you know what I mean? There has to be a place where the interns are making work. In Philly, I can think of a half dozen theaters founded by graduates of the Arden Apprentice Program, which for anyone who doesn't know, the Arden Theater has an apprentice program. It's year long. It pays a living wage. You work in all departments of production. There's a similar program at Cleveland Playhouse, also a city that has a ton of small theaters, many of them growing out of those same apprentices. And so I think like, look around you is a thing I would say. I lived and worked in New York for 18 years before moving to Philly, and I loved that time, but my credit card bills do not love that time, like truly. And I think that especially for those of you who've gone to school outside of New York City, there's nothing that says the work in New York is better. There's a lot of it, and some of it is amazing and some of it is bad. You know what I mean? And in other places there will be less, but there will still be work to make. And I think that some really amazing, beautiful work comes out of places that feel less pressure that the New York Times is going to show up.
Also going to throw in that in a lot of places, like I'm doing a project here in Beaverton, doing an immersive show, and I work mostly site specifically and kind of more immersive and spatial, and there's a lot more access to those spaces in other cities than say in New York, where again, you're paying a premium for a warehouse, where a lot of places will be like, warehouse, we don't use it. So that in itself is incredibly exciting. Even if you look at like what Meow Wolf and other have done in terms of like takeovers and the success, artistic and commercial success of that. And also local councils and cities will have more pots of funding for the arts. So a lot of times in other cities, where like in New York City, you have everyone and everybody and their grandmother and their second cousin going for the same pot of money. I'm gonna raise it right now if there's any questions for our panelists from the room. I obviously kind of this is beginning to show just like the wealth of knowledge and resources and brains to pick at the moment. If you do have any questions of those we haven't covered. Okay. Well, just jumping into another one for yourself. So I think as we when we walk away from this this conversation, like for each of you and your organizations, how best can those here as well as listening on Facebook Live and listen to this afterwards? Oh, I have a question right here. Oh yeah, what is the change you hope to see in the field that will make it better home for people entering the industry? So what are your hopes and dreams for change, and what are you working towards with that?
That organizations start to themselves. I think during the Great Pause, there was a lot of self-reflection and a lot of dead words put up on websites saying that we're about the work. And then when the rubber met the road, once we turned the lights back on, everyone reverted back to their trailing orientation and went back to business as usual. And I think that it felt good in the moment. And then when people were like, I've got to produce something, we were like, well, let's do a 10 out of 12. I was like, but you just said you weren't going to do one of those. And let's see how those things work. So again, I think we just need to figure out how to do this work better. And keep in mind that the thing that kept America churning during the Great Pause were artists. Everybody was at home, sitting on their couches, watching Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, all artists, all of us were behind the scenes making sure people had something to do. So I would also hope that the nation would rise up and realize.
That was so beautiful, Dstew. I think that I really want us to reimagine what coalition building looks like. I really want us to think about sharing both sharing knowledge and resources in a way that is that embraces how, none of us know all the things and together we know a lot of the things. And I don't just mean in entertainment, I actually mean with the building trades. I mean, with the teachers, I mean, with the healthcare workers. I mean, we've all learned a lot of things. And I think that to Dstew's point, we kept people entertained at home while people were keeping people alive, while people were keeping people fed. And I think that, I do believe that democracy happens in the Union Hall. And I think that if we're gonna move this country forward if we're gonna survive any part of climate change, if we're gonna move forward in any kind of equitable way whatsoever, we have to do it through collective action.
Actually, sorry, Megan,
no,
go ahead.
Please go ahead. There's so many good questions here. Please,
I'm seeing one in the chat that I think is it Tumak? I apologize for any mispronunciation. I think it's a really good, important question to ask is what barriers should those who come from non-traditional pathways, educational pathways, such as technical skills, apprenticeships, artist experience, what type of barriers do you think they should kind of expect and begin planning for when they enter into the industry?
So at least in spaces that I have been in, I think that sometimes being brave enough to admit what you don't know, but showing up and committing, this, for me, this industry has been about showing up and in instances where I'm in over my head, admitting that I have found by and large that people that are working in this industry are ready and willing to teach you and help you if you're willing to come and take that step. I guess maybe that's, I don't know if everyone feels that way, but people working, at least in my experience, if you're brave enough to step in the door, and you're ready to work hard, and there's a lot of people out there that will help you. So I would say ask for help. And your life experience, who you are, genuinely, I mean this genuinely, could be from some other field of study. I find this so often, I'll have we do have a paid internship at the Tank. If people are interested in that, by all means, please, we're more, if that's something that you're looking to do, please apply, because we love having artists of different industries. But I've had some of our interns, they didn't study theater at all. Like they came from a completely different background, but maybe they were just excited about the idea of working at a space, and those are people that we hire constantly, or have moved on to other jobs, and we've been helpful in making that happen. So I would be like, if you're in a situation where you're feeling, oh, I don't have this experience, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to show up, and get rejected. That's the way to do this thing. Like, if to succeed in this, I think you need to be putting yourself out there and give yourself credit for that rather than the accomplishment itself. If you step forward and say, I'm here, I want to be a part of this place, and they say, no, thanks, we can't accommodate that, go to the next place, but give yourself a sticker for doing that, because that's how you make connections. You have to put yourself out there. And if someone doesn't have time to help you, then the next person will. And I believe this wholeheartedly. It's been my experience. The community of artists in all these places generally are approachable people who, if you're willing to work hard, will help you. So ask for help.
Go to USITT. Go to the conference. Go meet people like Natalie. Go meet people like Sarah and myself there, and you'll find a lot more people that you have in common than you don't. Learn to network. And if you're an introvert like me and you really don't like to go talk to people, find a wing person, get a buddy, someone that's that extrovert that will sit there and go, you're coming with me. This is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. Go meet people, and you'll find out that there are a lot of folks. Don't put those barriers in front of yourself. Don't do that. You have greatness within. Just go out and find yourself a pal and do the things.
Yeah, I didn't know any, but when I graduated from undergrad, I went to a fancy school that didn't have a theater department, and I didn't know anything about professional theater. I knew a lot about how to read plays and nothing about professional theater. And I think that I really just asked people to have coffee with me. I asked like anyone whose work I like to have coffee with me. I asked like anyone who I like met. And almost no one said no. This business is really generous. I won't say no to anybody who asks me. I mean, it might take a minute to find a time to schedule or whatever. It might be on Zoom, but there's a real generosity, I think. And I think both Dstew and Meghan are talking about that too, that like people, if you're willing to put yourself out there, also don't assume that somebody who went to a fancy theater school has skills you don't have. They actually might not. And sometimes they're too worried about the name on their resume to do the work. Right? Like I painted a lot of floors. I swept a lot of my first internship was at New York Theater Workshop, and I swept like every inch of that building all the time. It was really funny. But if you're there to do the work, whatever the work is, people will want you to do the work. And eventually you won't sweep floors anymore, unless that's what you want to be doing, which is also awesome. People need to sweep the floors. Like all of the work has value. And I think that that's a thing we forget. But it's a collaborative art form, and we can't do the thing without everybody in the room. So, but I think ask for help, reach out to people. I agreed. Stage managers are excellent at sweeping, much better than me. And I think I agree. I was not a conference person. I have to go now sometimes, and I also hate it. Like, God, I just don't want to talk to all those people. But you will find your people in places like that. Do take a risk and go take a job at someplace you are scared to work. Do the thing that you're worried you don't know how to do, because you probably do know how to do it. And if you don't, somebody will teach you.
That's all really great. I'm just going to throw in there someone again who came in from Europe and to the city and knew like 3 people in the whole city. And it's a very intimidating, especially because everyone went to the same grad programs and everyone went to the same programs. And you're like, how do I even, and they're all sharing jobs. And you're just like, oh, that's how it all works. Was actually this whole thing, instead of like the energy put into building a network and a community from scratch, it's like, even what we're showing here is that there's so many pre-existing communities, and find your way into those. And it's like, it's economizing on the energy and the time and developing those networks that many folks have already had from the programs, which the programs do offer in the end. I'm actually got a question as well from the audience, just about like how your all's experience has been with, and how have you dealt with competitiveness in the industry?
So I think like maybe this is a really boring answer. And this maybe, I think actually ties back to what David was saying about the mental health piece. You know, you're going to have that feeling. You're going to feel like maybe I need a clarification. I'm taking competitiveness as a feeling of competition towards other people, not your competitiveness as an artist or whatever in the job market. So if I'm answering the wrong question, I apologize, but hopefully it'll still be worthwhile. I think that energy, right? That energy, like if it's gonna come into your system, you can take a hit of it, right? It can be motivating in a moment, but it must not be the space you occupy as an artist. You must, as an artist, continuously, I'm doing it to myself right now as I'm talking to you, Zoom. You must continuously remind yourself that where you are is okay, where you want to be is possible, but all you can do is continue to try, work hard, be kind to yourself, and be kind to other people. I believe that artists that can kind of do that find themselves where they want to be eventually. Because it's been my experience that I've often looked and said, oh, I wish I had that show. Oh, I wish I had that thing. I wish I was doing that. If in the instances where I can say, okay, well, that's an interesting feeling, how is that going to motivate me to now do my work here, A, B, and C, but not compare myself to that person, because I'm on my own artistic journey and nothing I have, not a single show or opportunity was something I could have ever predicted that I would have. It all came through a strange path of shows and opportunities and meeting people and friendships and collaborations that I could have never predicted. And I'll find myself doing something that I love and say, oh, how did I get here, right? And I could have never predicted that path. So be generous with yourself, be kind with yourself. If you have that impulse, that's okay. Say thank you for that. That's myself trying to motivate me to do my work, and then get back to work. Don't sit in it, because you're not going to get anywhere, and you're not going to make anything good, by the way, if you're worrying about how you're competing. When you get in an art space, when you get in that gooey goodness that is your flow as a designer, it's not going to be, you're not going to be thinking about that person. So that's what I have to say about it.
And I would also say lead with curiosity and not with judgment. I think that so often that we find ourselves that lend itself to that competitive space, is like we just end up judging folks. I could do that better. Why aren't they doing it? You know, paying attention to other people's lives, things like that. It's like, just lead with curiosity. You may learn something that may benefit you down the road.
I have a literal answer and a figurative answer. My literal answer is I'm not on Facebook. Like, it was very clear to me. I've never been on Facebook, but it was very clear to me that like having a thing that's just going to tell me all the great stuff that people are doing was going to be bad for me. Right. That like because, you know, you're going to be out of work sometimes probably, or you're going to be on a show that is less fun than you want it to be, or you're whatever. And I didn't want there to be a space where I could like drown in the seeming success of everyone else I knew, knowing of course that social media is fake, but you know what I mean? And I've also very carefully curated my Instagram to involve a lot of like cute animals as well as people I know, so that there's like good distribution of like furry things and whatever. So I think there's something about like really being careful about surrounding yourself with the inundation of competition. You're also going to have friends and colleagues who lean into that competition more, and you have to decide how to navigate that. And then I would say that like philosophically, I try to approach it from a place of compersion rather than jealousy. Compersion is the idea that we can be truly happy for someone else's success or joy. And like, if we approach the world from some kind of place of abundance, then the fact that like Meghan is doing a really amazing show doesn't mean there's not a really amazing show for me to do. I know that's not always true. I know that there is a limit to the amount of work there is, but if I can be truly happy for people, then it's easier. And I think that, I also think like Meghan said, like my career is a series of choices that I made. You know, I took jobs that paid less because they were in rooms that I wanted to be in with artists I wanted to be in rooms with. And I didn't want to sit at a tech table with like 8,000 monitors and a Broadway house. And so, you know, I've never done that. And I think that there's something about how we can be kind to ourselves to say like, you made the decision that was best for you in the moment with the information you had, and it's led you to where you are. And that's not a problem.
And also you might not, you know, this is something that I've felt, you know, just to say, this is very specific, but, you know, I wasn't ready for the attention, for instance, before I was ready. And this is a lifetime of a career that you're entering in. It's a beautiful thing to do with your life, you know, to tell stories and to do this together. That's what we are here to do. And that's, you know, and the like success, or when that has happened, I've been like, oh, I'm ready for this. Like my work is ready for this. I wasn't ready for it 5 years ago. I needed to do all those shows. I needed to do all of those shows. And then I was here, and this is the only time I can make this show. So, and all of those shows informed my understanding of my own artistry. So anyway, just to say, you want that thing now, and you want that thing to validate who you are. The validation of who you are is that you do this beautiful thing with your life.
And actually, just to tie this back around, something we talked about just before about getting coffee with everyone. This is this thing. Get coffee for everyone. And even if immediately you've kind of come in, we've all been there. We come in being like, this is going to immediately lead to X, Y, and Z, because we're master storytellers. And so we build these whole narratives in our head of where it's going to go. And because we're such master storytellers, they're so convincing. But what also, if you think about this, once you are ready, once you've met somebody, we remember everybody that we meet. And once you're ready, they follow. They're interested, be like, that person met me for coffee. I wonder what they're up to. I wonder what they're doing. So every single one of those meetings, whether you take away something personally, or you end up taking away something later professionally, I think that it's always a valid thing to do. You only ever benefit from that. So we're kind of getting up on the 90-minute mark, and I really wanted to leave some space for a couple other organizations to kind of have their platform that we had for tonight, because of course we're just speaking about a couple of collectives and groups. even here talking about they're all over the world, they're all over the country. Seek them out, join with them, engage with them. That's the most important thing. Don't just join, but be a member of them. But actually, I'm now gonna like throw the torch. Hand over the torch. Don't throw the torch, Anna. Hand over the torch to Kate and to Tanya.
Tanya, do you want to go first and talk a little bit about La Gente?
Sure, I would love to. Along with being a Wingspace member, I'm also an organizing member of an organization called La Gente, the Latinx Theater Design Network. And we're a network of Latinx designers, technicians, and managers with the primary goal of visibility, engagement, and advocacy. Organization with a non-hierarchical leadership structure. We're pretty close to launching a website with a directory of all La Gente members. Similar to Production on Deck, it's important for us to diversify the field and provide easy access to finding Latinx designers, technicians, and managers. We have a Facebook group, and we also have an Instagram. We're kind of going through a rebranding process, but please follow us on Instagram. We have a monthly general meeting open to all members every third Monday of the month. But this month, we're actually going to have a virtual meet and greet on June 6th. And if you're part of our Facebook group and our Instagram, we'll be announcing it there and sending out the Zoom link. And yeah, currently membership of 240 theater artists, Latinx theater artists across the nation.
Thanks, Tanya. I know that this space is hosted by Wingspace and we have this salon series, but just to say that as somebody who really believes in like networks and collectives and collectivism and community organizing, Wingspace really started from the seed of that, of like being together and supporting each other. It was founded by members who had all gone to school together, and they got out into the world of theater and missed the support network of being in space with other designers in that studio. So they created Wingspace, which has now expanded into, I don't even know how many members we have, over 50 or 60 or something like that. And I'm a member. I didn't even go to theater school, and it has been such an unbelievable thing for myself to be in community with folks. I work primarily as a projection designer, so there are other projection designers in here. There are other scenic designers and directors and dramaturgs. So, and it's a space where we have a shared values, shared community agreements. We have a number of initiatives, and that's all coming from members. So to have a space where those initiatives can be supported, anything that you want to do. And we also, invite suggestions from folks who are part of the Wingspace community, even if they're not members of Wingspace. So if there's any salon ideas, or we have the Wingspace Relief Fund was suggested by somebody outside of Wingspace, and that was an amazing initiative as well. And there's members of Wingspace who are part of USA 829, who work at the tank all the time, who are part of La Gente, who are part of many other organizations such as the Sea Lighting Foundation, the Movement Theater Company, who participated in We See You White American Theater. And then also just a huge shout out to Design Action, who unfortunately Twee was not able to join us today, but I did want to read a little bit about Design Action that Twee sent along. And Tanya and I are both involved with Design Action as well. So Design Action is an intergenerational, multi-ethnic, and multi-locational coalition of designers working to end racial inequities in the North American theater by confronting racism in our workplace and forging new pathways into the industry for rising designers of color. Founded in August 2020 as an affinity Zoom that met weekly on Zoom, Design Action now offers weekly educational workshops, monthly town halls, and individual support spaces for its members. Design Action has over 400 members, spanning undergraduate and graduate students, as well as early career, mid-career established designers working both in regional theater, off-Broadway, Broadway, film, television, dance, experimental theater. Within the next few years, the primary goal of Design Action is to become a grant-making organization to provide financial assistance to BIPOC designers for professional development opportunities. And if you go on to the Design Action website, you'll find a number of resources they've gathered. And then I just want to shout out this one specific initiative, the Springboard to Design, which I'll post in the chat. And just to say, Design Action came from this like huge need and desire to come together as a community to really address a lot of the oppressive white supremacy characteristics and traits of the theater industry, and to have this supportive network of folks to build change together. And it's a really amazing organization. So I hope that you check it out. And if you're interested in joining, do contact.
Great. Well, I would say thank you all for that. I mean, get involved, email, get curious, lead with curiosity to all of these things. We're just going to wrap up a little bit now. Thanks to all of our panelists for us here tonight. This has been fantastic. Thank you for all the resources. Thank you for all of the honest advice. I think a lot of times we can get kind of a produced response when we ask for honest advice about going into the industry. So it's good to get into the nitty gritty about what you actually need. Was gonna say that, and also here we are with Wingspace saying we do these salons a lot. We do quite a number of them of the year. They're all fascinating. We have a whole entire YouTube channel where you can go and watch past ones, amazing panelists, again, talking about getting those coffees. Go and look at them, see what the conversations are about, anything that really draws into you. And we have all these, basically kind of this, I always say curated, they're not really curated, more kind of selected and invited group of artists and activists from all across the field. So they're great names. So I would say you can also find them. Yeah, so here we go. And also our upcoming salons can be found on Facebook, as well as on the internet, on our website. It's all on the internet. I don't know. And so, and if you have any interest in yourself for salons, being like, wow, this is really great. I'd love to, there's a group of folks that I really would like to bring together to talk about certain subjects. We just are always open to suggestions. And you can just email us at salons@wingspace.com. Also throwing it in again, EL mentioned this, we also have a mentorship program. And so that's a great one, just being able to be mentored as well, engage with all of the members of Wingspace and all of their networks and everything beyond that. It's really fantastic. We can just throw that link into the chat again. Oh yeah, so it's coming up. So begin looking into it, prepping materials, asking questions. You can reach out to us, ask questions about it. But yeah, and with all of that, anybody have any final thoughts? Or are we all met and good? I think we're all met and good. Thank you all so much for coming. We're going to end the recording now. And thank you all for your time.